You're listening to the Sufficiently Advanced Podcast.
Love it. That's a death rattle. Which is exactly how I feel when we go over this next topic that we're about to speak about. So, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Hanson.
I'm Hulsey.
And we're talking about a conspiracy theory.
What's new?
Dun dun dun. So what are we talking about?
I don't know. It's your podcast today.
Touche. We're talking about the moon landing. The moon landing. Probably one of the most famous conspiracy theories of all time. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the most famous conspiracy theories ever. Just ever.
So, one of the reasons I like this one so much is it's one of those awesome demonstrations of things that sound totally plausible, but at the same time are totally wrong.
What do you mean it's wrong?
So there's... What?
What do you mean it's wrong?
I mean, that's what we have to say. We're science teachers. We're not allowed to say that the moon landing was faked. We have to pretend that we don't think it was faked so that we can keep our jobs. Isn't that how it works?
I don't think so.
Oh. Well, in that case, thanks for listening to the podcast. The moon landing was fake, and have a good night.
I'm Hulsey.
I'm Hanson.
Later. No, I mean, there's lots of theories out there about the moon landing. So, I mean, really quick before we get started, I had a student ask me the other day what was my favorite podcast we've done so far, like our favorite topic. And I told her I would mention it in the podcast and let her know then. So I think probably my favorite that we've done so far is just the one I had the most fun recording was the one with Mr. Payne when we did the Q&As.
I 100% agree. That was hilarious.
That was great. I think as far as the content, my favorite topic to talk about was probably the UFO one.
Oh,
the
nice.
Alien life one.
I think my favorite topic was the superhero one.
Okay.
Because I love getting to geek out about that stuff.
Oh yeah. So, all right, back to this moon landing conspiracy. So, run this down for me because
sure.
I mean, I know, but they need to know.
Okay, so there's a lot of like details on this, a lot of specific things that people argue, but the simple thing is they think that the moon landing never happened and that everything that we've seen of the moon landing was completely faked. Generally, the consensus is NASA faked it with the help of Stanley Kubrick, who, if you don't know, is an amazing director who's made some awesome movies like The Shining,
2001: Space Odyssey,
which is pretty much the reason why we have science fiction movies now. So you can thank him for that. So you want to go into Kubrick a little bit? Because that's a whole nother conspiracy theory in its own.
Well, let's talk about why is there some reasons why. We'll get into Kubrick in a minute.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some reasons why people think that the moon landing itself was fake. Now, if you don't know, Apollo 11 was the first manned mission to land on the moon in July 20th, 1969. Just a few months short of President John F. Kennedy's deadline to put a man on the moon and safely return them by the end of the decade. He made that promise in 1961, and they fulfilled it in 1969.
So they were on a time frame.
Yeah.
And they barely made the time frame.
They barely made the time frame.
So that caused
I would
some
argue they
suspicions
barely
on its
made
own.
it there.
Yeah.
I mean, technology-wise, basically, your cell phone has more computing power than the the spaceship that went to the moon.
A lot more,
like a bunch more.
I mean, a digital wristwatch pretty much has more computing power than the computers used for the moon landing, which is unbelievable that we were able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's one of the closest things to a miracle of science that we have.
Oh, yeah.
And like every time I watch the video of the moon landing, when he says that one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, I totally get a little misty.
Aww.
Not even ashamed to say it. It's amazing. So we have the time frame thing, which raises some suspicions. that it was conveniently just at the nick of time.
Yeah.
We also have a big one was the fact that we were in a space race.
Yeah.
So it was during the Cold War. We had this competition with Russia to see who was the better nation who could get to the moon.
Communism versus democracy. The whole, space race was huge. I mean, huge.
Like,
arms race, a space race.
The whole country was invested in this.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons that it made it happen was everyone's invested. But the Soviets were trying to get to the moon first. We were trying to get to the moon first. I mean, this is a big deal. And a lot of people believe that this is why the moon landing is fake.
Exactly. That we wanted to win, so we faked it so it looked like we won.
Yeah.
Why is this not true?
Well, I mean, let's not say it's not true just yet.
Yeah, fair enough.
But so conspiracy theorists suggest that instead of going to the moon, we actually filmed the moon landing in a soundstage at Area 51.
Ah, right.
Some say Area 51, some say Hollywood, blah blah blah. Either way, and that we filmed the whole thing. And and they believe that we filmed it because of several reasons. First of all, if you look at the background of the moon, if you look up at the sky, what do you see at night?
Stars.
Stars.
I mean, hope not in Houston, but
no, not in Houston. But if you're on those films, what do you not see?
Stars. There's no stars in any of the pictures.
In any of the pictures, there's no stars in the sky.
Yep.
Okay. So there's evidence number one. Okay. Evidence number two, the way that it was filmed, with it being slower movement, they thought that was the astronauts acting like they were on the moon.
Right, or maybe they were like on wires or something.
Or something like that. Another would be the flag, and that's the big one.
Yeah, this is a real like kind of convincer that a lot of people said that this was a deal breaker. It had to be faked because of the way the flag looked. And what happened was when they screw the flag in and twist it back and forth to get it to stay in the ground, it flaps as though there's wind blowing it. So there's no wind on the moon. There's no atmosphere.
Yeah, in a vacuum, because the moon's a vacuum, it doesn't have an atmosphere.
There's no air.
There should be no movement of that flag.
So it should not be flapping around like it's in the wind. So that's like I said, that's one of the most famous and biggest reasons for supposed proof of the moon landing.
Yeah. And so this whole thing was supposedly mastermind, like as far as the cinematography by legendary director Stanley Kubrick.
Right.
People believe it's Stanley Kubrick because of how well he made 2001: A Space Odyssey. Mm-hmm. They believe that, if he could do that, he could definitely do the moon landing.
Right.
And also there are evidence. They say there's evidence in his other movies.
Yes.
Like
The Shining, especially.
The Shining,
is the big
especially.
One. There's all these little like clues and hints that kind of feel like they're suggesting that he's trying to hint that he did fake the moon landing. There's all these little weird kind of coincidental things.
What was the room number? I forgot. There was like 2 something.
402?
Something like that.
Something like there's a documentary that's the title of that room.
Yeah.
And it's all about the different conspiracy theories around that movie and how it's revealing
his involvement. Yeah, his secret way of telling the people it's not real. It's not real.
Highly recommended. It's fascinating.
It's fascinating, but at the same time, you have to remember Stanley Kubrick was kind of crazy.
Kind is an understatement.
Yeah, he was a recluse. Like, he didn't like people.
Yeah.
So I see him doing this as kind of a weird thing. So the biggest evidences against Stanley Kubrick being involved in this or filming the moon landing in general. So the flag. Let's start with the flag.
Okay.
The movement of the flag appears as if there's wind. And yeah, when I first saw that, back when I was really into conspiracy theories, like I'll believe anything kind of crazy.
Sure.
I remember saying, "There it is. It's flapping.
100% real, confirmed.
Confirm. Illuminati confirm."
So what's the rebuttal?
So basically, like what you were saying, he was shoving a pole into the ground. Now, if you just set a pole down on the ground, it's not going to stand up.
Yep.
So he's twisting it and turning it, causing the flag to move, momentum.
Yep.
Because even then, inertia and stuff like that are still working.
Yes. And also, the fact that they're in a vacuum is actually the reason it looks that way, because the momentum is conserved much more than it would be on Earth. So when we're on Earth, it stops flapping really quick unless there's wind.
Yeah.
Right? Because the air resistance keeps it from flapping back and forth.
Yeah.
Whereas in a vacuum, if you have any momentum twisting back and forth, moving that flag, it's going to keep swinging back and forth for a minute, even though you're not touching the flag.
Yeah.
So that's completely confirmed to not be a valid
And,
theory.
they've also, it also fell over. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Flag.
Yeah.
When they lifted off, it fell over.
Yep.
It's the only one that fell over. But, all right, so we got the flag out of the way.
Okay.
All right, the pictures.
The pictures. This is
pictures.
another one of the really big ones.
Yeah. So in order for Stanley Kubrick to have fake it would have been, with the technology at the time, it would have been completely and totally impossible for Stanley Kubrick to fake the moon landing pictures.
Yep.
And it all has to do with the light source.
Okay.
It all has to do with the light source. So if they were filming on a soundstage,
Yeah.
the shadows would not run parallel. They would diverge from one another. They go in opposite directions.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because how close they are.
Yeah.
But the sun is, 98 million miles away. And so the light source is traveling so much further. There's no diffusion. And so
Right.
the shadows are parallel. And you can't fake that with the technology that they had at the time.
Gotcha.
Basically, in order to fake those lights, the shadows, they would have to have an array, like a wall-size array of lasers, of white lasers.
Which we didn't have.
We had lasers, but they're all
not-
red.
yeah,
They're all
yeah.
red lasers, so everything would have been red. And each one of those lasers, if we had they'd have to be so close, almost like pixels on a TV, that these things would cost more than the annual budget of the United States of America. Like, not even NASA's budget. I'm talking the entire budget of the United States.
Nice.
Like, we really got to beat the Soviets. Everyone, hunger strike.
And
for a
speaking
year.
of like cameras and things like that, there's a whole video that you can find on YouTube that's done by a photographer, and he talks about all the specific details of the pictures that were taken and the filming, and he explains even beyond the light source thing how the technology to fake the pictures that we took just didn't exist.
Yeah.
Like, none of the things that were recorded could have been made to look like that with the cameras that we had at the time.
Yeah.
And he goes into detail of the camera technology and stuff like that, apertures and how all those things worked. But essentially, even with just the light source shadow thing, it's obviously confirmed to be debunked. Yeah.
Another big one, the stars,
Yep.
has to do with that light source as well. On
Yeah.
Earth, we have diffusion of light. On the moon, you don't, and so the light was a lot brighter.
Yes.
And so
also, we're on the day side of the moon.
yeah,
Like, we can't see stars during the day.
yeah,
And we're on
the day side.
the day side. That's why you can't see stars, because the moon is shining so brightly that it works similar to when you're in the daytime on the Earth. You just can't see the stars during the day.
And outside of the Stanley Kubrick connection and the idea that was filmed, there's actual physical evidence on the moon that we have been there.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, this whole operation was a complete, like, flying by the seat kind of situation.
Yeah.
We are lucky we made it there. I mean,
Yes. We're especially lucky we made it back.
yeah. People always also cite that, America would be afraid to have astronauts killed on live TV, but they've done that twice.
Yeah.
The Challenger disaster and Discovery.
Yep.
Or no, it was the Columbia.
Columbia. Yeah.
Columbia.
You're right.
So Challenger and Columbia. And, we were actually better about reporting it than the Soviets were. I mean,
right.
The major one for the Soviets where they actually had astronauts die was the Soyuz 11 capsule, which it had rapid decompression and killed all the astronauts on the inside.
And it wasn't, we've had plenty of astronauts die before the moon landing as well.
Yeah.
And all of those were well publicized and, well reported. So there's really no reason why we would want to hide that.
Yeah.
So we got that.
We invited the media to all the launches,
right?
As opposed to the Soviets.
And to be honest, it's just as likely that astronauts are going to die in the launch than it is in the trip to the moon.
Yeah.
So it's all dangerous.
It's all dangerous.
All high chances of death.
So in the late 2000s, up until still today, NASA has sent an imaging satellite around the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes high-definition pictures of the lunar surface.
Yep.
So high def that we can actually see the lunar rover, the little golf cart they drove around in. That thing's
so
ridiculous.
Cool.
Like
I love it. It's hilarious.
Sorry, I'd love to play golf on the moon. But you can actually see the tracks from it. You can see where they left the lander, where they lifted off. You can see the scorch marks from the fire of the engine.
Yep.
You can see where the Apollo 11 flag fell on its side. You can see 5 of the 6 flags, perfectly. And while astronauts were up there, they brought back 2 things.
Yeah.
They brought back a bunch of moon rocks.
Oh, yeah. Moon rocks,
that have been independently verified by sources all over the world. Different countries have verified them. And the prisms.
The prisms. Oh, this is when I heard about this, I was like, this is the game changer, clincher of all to say that we did, in fact, go to the moon. And so the way it works, if you're not familiar, is if you've ever seen a laser or a flashlight shined at a mirror, when it shines off, it shines at a different angle.
Yeah.
Right? So the only way to get it to shine directly back at you is to have it perfectly lined up with the mirror.
Yeah.
Well, what they have is they put these special prisms on the moon that when you shine a light on it, no matter what angle you're shining it from, the prism bends the light to go directly back at you.
Yeah.
And what that means is that that's literally doesn't exist in nature. You have to build very special, precisely engineered prisms in order to do that.
Yeah.
And we can shine lasers from the Earth
to
the moon and have them bounce directly back at us at the perfectly exact angle to prove that those are working. And again, this has been independently verified from countries all over the world that have done these tests and things like that.
And, it's interesting. All the majority of the moon landing conspiracists are Americans.
Yeah, that is rather weird.
It is rather weird. It's like we don't trust our government. I mean, don't trust your government.
Yes.
Whatever. Anyway, so the truth is
that's another rabbit hole.
The truth is out there. Okay, I want to believe. But so what's interesting, in 49 years since the moon landing. Americans have said, oh, it was fake. We just did it to beat the Russians and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
You know who's never said that we faked it?
Who?
The Soviet Union. The Russians.
Huh. Funny. You would think that they would be the biggest supporter of the idea that the moon landing was faked.
Yeah. No.
And they've
independently verified it.
They've said that it was absolutely real.
Yeah.
I mean, they conceded the win to America.
Yeah.
And if anybody would be invested in proving that it was fake,
It'd be them.
it would be the Russians. So again, that's another deal clincher pretty much, I think. And as far as this goes, this was a huge project.
Yeah.
Billions and
$20 billion.
billions of dollars, something like
20
that.
or 30 billion.
On top of that, you had how many people working on it?
Oh, like what? 400,000?
Hundreds of thousands of people. There's a famous saying that 3 people can keep a secret as long as 2 of them are dead.
Exactly.
And this applies to that perfectly.
How do you expect 400,000 people to keep the secret? Like, hey, we're going to fake the moon landing, but just don't tell anyone.
Yeah, there's so
All of you,
many...
like holding like a mass conference. Yeah. Like, put your cell phone up, Jimmy. Put your cell phone up.
Exactly.
It's important.
I mean, it's that type of thing is just impossible. With that many people working on a project,
it is impossible.
You can't keep that big of a secret.
Now, here comes the branch off conspiracy theory.
Okay.
Now, before I bring this one up, we want to hear what you have to think in the comments below.
Yes.
Do you think that the moon landing was faked, or was it real? But let's also toss in an extra option.
Okay.
The moon landing happened.
Yep.
And we didn't go back because we found an alien base.
I like it.
So there's your third option.
And also, if you believe it was faked, what's your favorite piece of evidence for why it was faked? Or if you don't, and is there a piece of evidence that convinced you that it was absolutely real?
Cool. I like that.
Yeah.
So let's try to get a goal of 100 likes.
100 likes.
What would we do if we get 100 likes?
Ooh. Candy? Do we like candy?
I don't think we're allowed to give candy.
Ah, fair enough. No candy. What do you think? Maybe, we could do like some sort of vote in the comments.
There we go. So look for the poll. If we get 100 likes, we'll put up a poll.
There it is.
All right.
Awesome.
So thanks for listening this week.
Yeah, this is a fun one. I love conspiracies. So if you guys like this, maybe also in the comments suggest other conspiracies that you'd like us to talk about.
Or any other topics you guys want to hear about.
Yes.
So remember to smash that like button.
Smash it.
Smash it, like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell notification because YouTube doesn't know how to work anymore. This has been the Sufficiently Advanced Podcast. I'm Hulsey.
I'm Hanson.
We'll see you later.